Hello everyone,
Evening,
and welcome to
everyone.
Rad Chat, the first therapeutic radiographer-led oncology podcast. Welcome to podcast number 36. My name is Naaman Joker Anderson, and I'm joined by my fellow host, Joe McNamara. A big thank you to our last guest, Yatman Sang, who discussed his career to date, advanced practice, and equality, diversity and inclusion. If you haven't had a chance yet, please do go and take a listen. So we're very pleased to introduce our guest for this evening, Clare O'Neill, who we're discussing her treatment journey and her role at the charity
Hi,
CoppaFeel.
thanks for
Hi,
having
Clare.
me.
So, Claire, could you tell us a bit about yourself and, if you feel comfortable, your experiences of
Yeah,
cancer?
of course. So I am a nurse by background, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017. So my kind of diagnostic journey is that I was in the bathroom one day and I was looking in the mirror and I saw a dimple in my breast, which I hadn't seen before. I knew it was not normal for me. And I kind of had a feel around at that point and felt what kind of could be a lump, I guess. It felt like an area of hardness. I went to my GP. Even though I was a nurse, I hadn't felt a breast tumour before. I didn't know. I'd actually avoided oncology completely for whatever reason. So I didn't know about oncology. I went to my GP and my GP actually felt that it couldn't be breast cancer and actually told me that. And very quickly, he felt that because I previously had a bad chest infection. Actually, I had pneumonia and I had a chest CT. And he said, well, I can't see your chest CT, but I know that if I could see it, if anyone saw it, then they would see a breast tumour if you had a breast tumour. But he did the right thing anyway, crucially, and referred me to the breast clinic. I was referred to the breast clinic. I think I was seen about a week later at St Bart's breast clinic. And they told me there and then that it was breast cancer. And obviously that was a huge shock. I was only 33 at the time. I am incredibly grateful to St Bart's for how well I was treated there. Immediately I realised that there was this misconception between primary care and secondary care because I asked the radiologist at St Bart's when I was diagnosed, my GP said that it would have showed up on my chest CT for the pneumonia. And he said, oh no, I'm looking at that CT now and I can't see it. So even before I worked at CoppaFeel, which is where I work now and have done since 2019, and which is a breast cancer awareness and education charity aimed at younger people, immediately I realised then that there were misconceptions in healthcare around breast cancer and diagnosis of breast cancer. So my experience was I was diagnosed at stage 2. I had surgery, radiotherapy, hormone therapy, and I didn't go back to clinical practice, not for a while. I have since gone back to clinical practice. But then in 2019, got the job at CoppaFeel, had a very personal connection to breast cancer. And it became my job then to talk about breast awareness and to write our health information for the charity, and also to talk to healthcare professionals about some of these misconceptions and how we can improve health promotion for patients
in your family?
And how we can improve breast awareness. No, I didn't. It was actually estrogen positive breast cancer that I had, which I understand is the most common type of breast cancer. I have had cancer in the family, but not breast cancer. I was on the pill for 10 years or more. But again, I don't know why I got breast cancer. I did say to my oncologist once, could it be that? And as a very good oncologist, she responded by saying, could be, we don't know, which is just what I love from clinicians. You know, that thing of, we want to know. That's what I loved about my GP referring me anyway, even though he felt it couldn't be, because he said, I can feel what you can feel and I can see what you can see. And as healthcare professionals, we we are curious. We want to know, and if we don't know, we should say we don't know. And so no, I haven't had breast cancer in my family. I don't know why I got breast cancer.
Of self-examinations? I know you said
but I did, and I'm very grateful for St Bart's and for the treatment that I had.
You kind of had a medical background, but did you know how to do a self-breast examination?
No. And this is the crucial thing, because when I talk about this, one of the main things that we say to patients, to the public, to anyone really, is there is no correct way. And so I avoided oncology as a professional. And I didn't really know. I straight away thought to myself, oh my God, if this is breast cancer, I've not learned anything. I've deliberately stayed away from cancer, so I'm not going to know anything. But it didn't matter ultimately, because what mattered was I knew my body, and I knew that this wasn't right for me, this wasn't normal for me. And that's the message that we try and give out to everyone really, which is to say, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know a proper technique or anything like that. You don't need to be a healthcare professional. You just need to know your body and feel confident that you know your body.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing, Claire. Do you find that now you're working in it when you've avoided it and now you've had treatment?
Yeah, it does.
Does it get easier to talk about it with other people?
I think I'm in a good position really, especially at work, that I've been through that kind of diagnostic process and I have some understanding of it. Once you get beyond that, really everyone's story is different, and even from diagnostically people's stories are different. But when people start having treatment and even breast cancer, every breast cancer really is kind of different and unique to that person, and their journey is going to be different. But when I talk about that diagnostic process of going to the GP, then maybe being referred, and that fear as well. And, we always say to people, 9 out of 10 people who go to the breast clinic are not given a breast cancer diagnosis. The breast clinic is for a lot more than that. So in some ways you could say I was one of the unlucky ones, but I think I was one of the lucky ones really, because I was diagnosed early. And I was, very fortunate in the treatment that I was given and lots of things, that the support I was given. I was actually given fertility treatment. So some things, are tricky to talk about. People don't often talk about things like fertility when it comes to cancer, because we think of cancer as something that affects older people. So that's, that's a tricky thing to talk about sometimes, because people don't think about those kind of side effects, I suppose, or outcomes of treatment. Infertility is probably, when we talk about side effects or what has happened as a result of my treatment, that's the biggest, most impactful thing that's happened is infertility. I could give you a list of side effects and other ailments and other things that have happened because of my treatment, but that's the biggest one. So some things are tricky conversations to have, but mostly when it comes to that diagnostic process and the confidence and being able to say to people, you know your body better than anyone else. I know that because I've been through that, and I wasn't an expert and I wasn't sure, I had doubts, but I do know about that. So yeah, that helps.
Yeah, it's a lot of knowledge and almost first-hand knowledge, probably something you never wanted, but that, I think, in a way, when I think with Joe, I always say I've never had cancer, so yes, I can understand it to an extent what our patients go through, but it's that unique experience, which isn't nice, but that empathetic, compassionate side where well, actually, I've been through that. I've been on a radiotherapy treatment couch. I know exactly how it feels, how to be cold, etc. I know when Dr. Liz O'Riordan came on and talked about her experiences, and Sarah Lianage as well, it was quite eye-opening for a lot of people with the feedback we've had. I suppose just touching on the side effects and stuff that you mentioned, did you have a lot of support or any support with the sort of fertility side of things
I think as
when you were going through?
anywhere you're treated in the UK for cancer at a certain age, actually that day in the breast clinic when I was diagnosed, I was in a room with the surgeon, and my husband was with me, thankfully, and a clinical nurse specialist. And as a nurse, I was thinking, this isn't good. I didn't know anything about oncology, but if you've worked in healthcare for long enough, to pick up on certain silences and certain things. I just thought, this isn't good. But one of the first things she said to me, the breast surgeon at Barts said, do you have children? And we said no. She said, do you want any? And I thought, oh my God, I've just found out I've got breast cancer and now I'm being asked that. But they did everything they could to make sure that we had the best possible chance at having a family, or getting pregnant, I should say. And since 2017, I've had about 5 cycles of IVF, and they were unsuccessful, and we decided to stop. But I'll always be grateful to Barts for, giving us that opportunity, because it's so huge. It's such a big part of people's lives, and they take the idea of having a family for granted. So I did get support. I got counselling through Barts as well, through the fertility services there. It was still ongoing throughout the pandemic, how they did it, and with so many sections of healthcare, I don't know how people managed to make it work and carry on treating patients throughout the pandemic, but they did. And I'm very grateful
Honestly,
for that.
Claire,
So,
as someone who
I got
through
really good support,
cycles
and
of IVF,
I can't fault
can only
it.
empathise with having to make that decision. And you're incredibly brave, because I even talking about it now, it's really emotive for me, really emotive. It's something that I think lives with you. It's part of you, and anyone who has to go through that, let alone also a cancer diagnosis. I just think, you deserve a medal, and everyone who ever has to go through that deserves some kind of recognition, because it's tough. Even for anyone who has never had to go through an IVF cycle, just the amount of injections you need, and for someone like me who faints at every opportunity, the amount of healthcare professionals that used to have to pick me up off the floor. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's it's the reality. It's the reality of what it is. And, I know that it may have been in my future anyway, even if I hadn't had that diagnosis. But it was definitely going to be in my future, having had a cancer diagnosis. And fertility preservation was always going to be a part of what my treatment would involve. But, I feel like you're right. It is hard to talk about. It is hard to talk about, because it's only been a recent thing for me as well, really. It's only been sort of last year, at the end of last year, that we decided we were going to call it quits and we weren't going to continue with this. My body had been through a lot since 2017. And so, it's a hard thing to talk about, but it's the reality. If I'm talking about my experience, I feel like I'm not really doing it justice if I don't talk about that part of it, because it was huge. But, again, we're lucky. If I was in the States or any other country, maybe I wouldn't have had that as part, all for free as part of my treatment. So I'm incredibly lucky that I was treated at St. Bart's and got that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think something you've touched on as well is that, yes, we're a lot better at catching cancers early. People are obviously being treated a lot quicker, better, they get through the pathway, but it's the after effect that you might have had finished your treatment quite quickly, but the effects from any of the side effects from any of forms of treatment. Yeah. So, chemotherapy, I know you didn't have it, but radiotherapy and the hormone treatment that can last for up to 5 years and more, it is that burden afterwards. I know there's a lot of work now being put into late effects. Obviously, know more about radiotherapy, but I know Zoe Grant is doing a lot of work, so someone who we've worked with before in primary care. So as you talked about earlier about bridging the gap between primary care and then obviously us in secondary care, there isn't a lot that's known, and actually once patients finish with us, we don't see them. We see patients for a very small snapshot in radiotherapy, but actually knowing that after they've been discharged by us, and they may have, let's say, the next appointment with their consultant in 6 weeks, and then their mammogram, which might be another 8 months later, actually there isn't much else going on in between. And that's where primary care, I think, could be really great to come into it.
I hope so. Yeah.
Things hopefully
I do have
in the
fond
future will
memories.
start to improve.
It sounds strange to say, but
patients.
Really good memories of therapeutic radiographers and my time in radiotherapy. It's hard. That's the thing I think cancer patients will tell you, and I was kind of warned about before. I can't speak about chemo because I didn't have chemo, but it was hard. Radiotherapy was hard. It was tiring, but it was always quiet at Bart's when I was treated, and it was just it became a bit of a ritual because you go in every day. I was walking in every day, yeah. I mean, again, I was treated brilliantly, and it always felt like a weird thing because I knew that over time it was causing me a lot of like tiredness, fatigue, burns, all those kind of things. But it was a weird kind of ritual.
Really,
something about the ritual of going in every day was really
nice. But I definitely hear from
and the
lots
therapeutic
of patients who say
radiographers were
exactly that.
fantastic.
They actually miss having that contact with not necessarily therapeutic radiographers, but that daily kind of process of, right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go and get ready now, I'm going to go to treatment, we're going to get through that, we're going to have a conversation, I'm going to get to see people. And typically I would say as well, for anyone who is about to start radiotherapy, it isn't a depressing place to be. Quite often people are like, oh, I'm going to go to a cancer hospital and I'm going to sit in a radiotherapy department with everyone who has cancer. It is going to be really depressing and solemn place to be. And I, working in a radiotherapy department, I've never felt like that. If anything, it's always quite a pleasurable place to be, which again sounds really bizarre, but our patients generally, I think, offer lots of peer support to each other. And I think it also gives people a bit of a chance to relax. And if they want to talk about their cancer, they can, because I don't know about you, Claire, but, from some of the patients that I've liaised with, they feel like they can't always talk about it with friends or family, or they maybe censor themselves because they can't just blurt out, well, actually, I'm feeling like this today and I'm really scared and I'm anxious, because they don't necessarily want to create any fear in those people that are closest to them. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, I definitely did. And even, talking about anything that is that you need to be in it to know, to understand it really. Having us talking about IVF earlier and you sharing that you'd experienced it as well, there's something that makes me think, okay, this person understands. And when you've been through a cancer diagnosis, it's the same, even though nobody's experience is the same, that camaraderie that you get during treatment is it really helps. It really is helpful. It's beyond that it becomes tricky. I know that I wouldn't be the first cancer patient to say, once you end your treatment and you're however many years you may be in remission, you may be living with cancer, then it becomes tricky, how you navigate it, how much of your life it takes up, and how you talk about it then. But yeah, I mean, knowing that somebody's been through it, there's just a shorthand, it's just like any experience really. There's a shorthand there, and it becomes
really important.
easy.
And did
and
you find
feel
you had
relieved
lots
that
of
people
access
understand
to
where you're
support
coming from.
resources should you have needed them during your radiotherapy?
I absolutely did. I did a lot of research online as well of what to expect as well. I was probably a little too prepared, but then I did have, there's just small things really that are helpful. I had a friend that went through a breast cancer diagnosis as well, a year or two after me, and I was able to say, oh, these are the creams that are really useful to to use, and this is the deodorant that I used when I was having radiotherapy, and because there's certain things you can't use, and I mean, it was just an excuse to buy products, to be honest. but it is nice to be able to say, oh, okay, this worked, this doesn't work so well, and but yeah, I mean, I had the support there as well. I had mental health support, counselling support. It was all there, and I think with the NHS, in general, if you're going through something really big and something that's an acute problem or an emergency or a big thing, big diagnosis, the NHS is so great at that. And where it's, where it has fallen down because, it's been kind of not funded properly or whatever, or it's struggling, is probably things that are more chronic and are less, sort of non-elective, elective things, or are less urgent. That's when it becomes problematic, for people living beyond cancer or with cancer, and they've gone through active treatment and they're out the other side of it. That's when it starts becoming harder to get that support if you need it, because there's always going to be, as we say, there's real long-term effects. There's always going to be support needed.
Known previously. Getting you to think back now.
Is there anything that surprised me about yeah, I mean, it does feel like a long time ago now. It would have been 2018 that I had radiotherapy. I mean, it was a surprise that there was something that was quite satisfying and therapeutic about the process of going in every day.
Because we often find that
I never expected that to be the case.
Tend to know more about chemotherapy. I think sometimes that's because the side effects are quite visible.
Yeah.
If you're having a chemotherapy drug that's going to cause you to lose your hair, people will go, oh, that person's on chemotherapy. Whereas with radiotherapy, it doesn't always have a visual side effect that people can see. So interested to know if you'd heard of radiotherapy and therapeutic radiographers prior to starting the treatment.
Yeah.
Don't apologise, Claire. We see
I'm
that
going to be
all
honest,
the time.
even as a nurse, I hadn't heard of therapeutic radiographers. I wouldn't have known that that's your title. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, I mean, good for you, but I mean, I had
this is why we're here, to make sure no one ever forgets what our title is.
I had quite a benign understanding of it, really. I wasn't scared of it at all. In fact, I wasn't. I was so confident in the NHS and so confident in healthcare professionals that I wasn't scared of any of the process, really. Not the treatment side of it anyway. I think, if anything, it was more that I was surprised that something that was I wasn't aware of every day, that I was doing every day, cumulatively had such a huge effect, actually. Of course, it makes sense that you're going every day and you're having this treatment that, and it's targeted and whatever. It makes sense that you may have, you're going to have burns. I had burns, I had a couple of blisters. It was painful, but it was weird because it was just, that little bit every day. But then it was also useful in a way, because it made me think about the impact it was having on my whole body, because at the beginning I was working and I was fine, and I was doing it all, and then after a while I was realizing, okay, no, this is having a real effect. And one thing that somebody said to me once about radiotherapy was that I'm not sure if this is true, perhaps you can tell me, but they said that your body is trying to heal the tissues that have been have had the sort of residual damage from the treatment, and so it's zapping your energy because your body thinks that something's wrong, so it's trying to heal it, and that's what's kind of causing this tiredness. So in a way, that what was happening to my boob was good, because it made me realize, okay, this is what's happening to my whole body.
Yeah, and I think the way I've been explained it, and Joe, as you're the educator here, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, but the way we'd explain it, just for anyone listening, is if there are any cancerous cells, the radiotherapy will destroy them, destroys their DNA, and when they're a dead cell, they need to be removed from the body. That's normal, what happens in the body anyway, even if it's not a cancer cell. Any dead cells, it takes energy to get rid of them. That's one kind of mechanism of tiredness and fatigue. And then the other side is any of the normal cells, as you said, Claire, when they're damaged, their cells obviously are damaged, right. Their DNA might break, etc., but they have the ability to regenerate and go back to where they were before. That takes a lot of energy as well, that repair and healing process. So both of those working together in tandem, patients usually find it towards the end of treatment. If not, it can peak about there's a bit of debate, but either 7 to 10 days or 10 to 14 days post radiotherapy. That's when it is, because actually your body is using all of its energy just to heal that area once the radiotherapy is finished. Joe, I'm hoping I said that correctly.
And then going through surgery, if someone has chemotherapy, radiotherapy
thanks, miss.
typically is at the end. And I genuinely think that it's all of that cumulative processes that kind of hits that peak whilst you're going through radiotherapy, as well as the psychological impact of having a cancer diagnosis. I know that when I've been a patient sitting on my own waiting for an appointment, is those times that you kind of have time to process things. And unfortunately, sometimes in radiotherapy, there is quite a long wait for treatment or appointments or bloods or getting a prescription. Yeah. And it's that sitting and reflecting, I think, that is also exhausting. Yeah. Mentally, you're having a lot to cope with. So lots of processes all happening at once. And for some people, radiotherapy departments aren't close to where they live. So they're traveling, maybe 2.5 hours each way to get to a radiotherapy department. And that in itself can be absolutely exhausting. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you must have a lot of tears in the waiting room, because I certainly know that I was crying in the waiting room on a couple of occasions.
They get to use like £2.2 million pieces of equipment. It all looks quite like sci-fi, artificial intelligence, you get to use all this amazing piece of kit. But ultimately, I think a lot of people who go into the profession are because of that emotional support that they're able to offer to patients, and the care that you're able to give someone. It's definitely a highly specialised role that has lots of facets to it, so it's great from that perspective. So Claire, thinking about what you're doing now, so what's your title at CoppaFeel?
Yeah. I'm Health Information Manager. So, so I write all our health information for patients and the public and all of our beneficiaries, but also it's still part of my role to engage with healthcare professionals like yourself and make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We're all talking about breast awareness, because, it just occurred to me really just recently that with other symptoms of cancer, we rely so much on the patient to be able to come to us or whoever the healthcare professional is to say, this mole is new, or my bowel habits have changed, or I've lost weight, but we, as a healthcare professional, you don't know they don't have that mole. You don't know what their bowel habits are. You don't know what weight they may have been recently. You might not know that. So why should breast awareness be any different? One of the biggest misconceptions with the public is that they think that breast exams, which I don't like using that word exams because nobody likes exams, but that it's something a healthcare professional should do, or, something that requires a certain skill, and we as healthcare professionals, we do kind of learn these things, and we are, and that's fine for us. But for the public, it's about saying to them, no, you know your body better than anyone else. You do whatever feels comfortable for you, as long as you know are aware of what the signs and symptoms are, you know your breast tissue goes up to your collarbone, under your armpits, you know, and you're doing it roughly once a month, then you're doing it right. And I think that's really the message that we want to get out to the public, because, you know, every other cancer symptom, or many of them, we rely on patients to tell us, you know, that something's wrong. So with breast awareness, it should be the same as well, because some people have like inverted nipples, or some people might have lumps around their period if they have periods or whatever. But we rely on them to be able to tell us that. So we want to be able to empower people to say, don't be scared. You know your body.
No,
you know.
No, absolutely
you come
not.
and see
I was
us
going to plug
if there's anything
CoppaFeel
that's
anyway,
not
actually,
normal for
to be
you.
honest,
So
because it's an amazing
had
charity.
to get that in. Sorry, that's my big plug for that.
Lots of support from kind of celebrities. So, you know, for people who have never come across the charity, you just need to have a look at maybe some of the ambassadors that you use. It's quite a high profile breast cancer charity, but beyond that kind of marketing, PR facing side of things, I think actually the website is amazing. So using some of the resources, so I've recently just ordered our breast self-examination poster to go on the shower wall at work, and I've got one of the boobettes to come and do a talk hopefully at the university. And I've also, Claire,
great.
signed up, you know, one of these moments of madness when you're like, oh,
Great.
yes, that would be fun. So I've just signed up to maybe do either the Sahara or a trek. Is it in Wales that they're doing it? But right, yep. Yay!
It's in Pembrokeshire.
Oh,
yeah,
see, that
and
would be amazing.
I have
haven't
to
even
tell
told my
you that
husband yet.
I
So,
hope that I'm going to
that'll
be doing the trek in the Sahara,
conversation
so I
when
hope
go,
that
oh
you
yeah,
come
just
as
to
well.
let you know next week. Although he wouldn't be surprised coming from me. He's like, oh, okay then. I do these weird and random challenges.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did laugh once
No.
actually, because I abseiled down one of the university buildings, and I said to him and a friend, I said, "Oh, will you just
gonna say,
pick me up from work?"
There's no way he'd be
He was like,
surprised
"Oh, yeah,
that you're
no,
suddenly
that's
going
fine."
off to do a
And
trek somewhere
then
across the
on
world.
the way,
And
I
you
was
probably
just
still
like,
keep in
"Oh,
touch
look
with
at
him
my
and
view."
do
I
a
just texted
podcast or
him
something
picture.
while
He's
you're
like,
there.
"Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just on the roof." He's like, "What are you doing? If you had a fire alarm or something?" I'm like, "No." Anyway, turns up and I'm abseiling down this building. So yeah, I like to do weird and crazy things every now and then.
Oh,
But
wow. Oh, Joe, I really hope you're going to be with. I hope we're both going to be in the Sahara. It would be so nice to have a healthcare professional there,
Yeah.
someone that I know. But yeah, it would be great. It would be great if we're both there. So let's see. Let's watch this space.
I do. I have to say though, I did love the application form because
Are you sure about
it's just
this?
about you.
Because
isn't
remember,
it? So
she'll
you
be
just have to
telling
really think about
everyone,
yourself.
"Hi, my name's Joe. I'm a
amazing.
therapeutic
Maybe you
radiographer. Do you know what that
contribute,
is? No?
that's funny when
Well,
they
we've got the
ask
whole
you
Sahara to walk
contribute
now. I'm going to
most.
tell you for the
Yeah.
entire
It's like
journey what I
makeup and my
do."
straighteners, although you wouldn't know it from my hair today. But I just thought, you know how shallow that makes me sound. But oh, that's amazing.
No,
But yeah, for
I
anyone
think
out
I
there
think
who's in
it will
healthcare,
stand
but
you in
also
good
from a
stead with the
patient
CoppaFeel team.
perspective,
Don't worry.
students, educators, the resources are absolutely amazing. And even down to linking to the curriculum for schools, I think is absolutely brilliant. And even kind of saying that I was doing a podcast tonight with my family, it was like, oh, you know, well, I don't need to worry
Yeah.
because I don't have breast tissue. And I'm like, no, you do. Males get breast cancer too. So, but it's always stimulating that conversation, isn't it? Although anyone around me gets sick of hearing about cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. We've worked hard and just, you know, over the past couple of years as well, a lot has changed about our, you know, what we offer and our website. And we've got a self-checkout now, which is like a digital online app. It's digital. Yeah, of course it's digital. I'm 104, by the way. Um, yeah, I am. Yeah, no, it's an online app. So basically, if you don't check your
thank you
boobs,
for
pets,
confirming
chests,
that. Thank
breasts,
you.
whatever you call them, or if you know anyone who doesn't and wants a bit of help getting started, then the self-checkout's great. It really just takes you through. It answers some of those common like FAQs, and it just takes you through the process of kind of starting to check so that you can build that confidence. But yeah, we've got packs as well for healthcare professionals. Any healthcare professionals listening, you can go on our website and there's an in healthcare page and you can order a free pack of materials. So leaflets for patients, badges for staff, all kinds of things. And then all the health information on there as well on the website, CoppaFeel.org, is all new. So any information that you might want from, whether it's about breast implants or pregnancy, breastfeeding, any information like that, then it's all on the website. So yeah, go and have a look. You can. Oh,
It's brilliant. And you can get a text every month as well.
thank you.
I've
Yeah,
seen
our
that. I do
social
love your
media
social media
manager
on
is
CoppaFeel.
fantastic.
Lots of great
Honestly,
memes. I think the
I'm
one this
so
week
baffled,
or last
as
week
you, as I
with
just said, I'm
Adele was
104
great.
years old, so I'm baffled by most, like TikTok. I'm baffled by all of it. Our social media manager though is fantastic, Meg. Shout out to Meg.
Well done, Meg. Claire, within your role, with obviously with the self-reporting tool and stuff, I know we've had Ina Butt on before talking about sort of Southeast Asian community and kind of chest or breast awareness, etc.
We're
How have you
trying,
found the
but we've
engagement
got a
with
lot
sort
of
of
work to do.
communities that might find it a bit harder to talk
we
about
know that those
a
health
chest examination?
inequalities exist. We know in terms of breast cancer outcomes, South Asian women and Black African and Black Caribbean women are much more likely to be diagnosed at stage 4 than white women. There are many health inequalities as well with the LGBTQ community, and pregnant women also with breast cancer are more likely, if they're diagnosed with breast cancer, are more likely to be diagnosed at stage 4. So we know those health inequalities exist. What we've tried to do in some small way is just create some more resources targeted at those kind of groups of people. So we're creating some more resources for pregnant women. We've had our the importance of checking leaflet, which is our sort of core information leaflet, translated into other languages, including Bengali and Punjabi, to try and bridge that gap really for South Asian women. But I am always open to suggestions. We are only kind of early days and trying to address some of these health inequalities and do make some of these extra resources. We're a very small team, so we try and shout louder than our size, and we do a good job of that. But we're a small team, but we're growing. And so if anyone has any suggestions of how we can kind of on a grassroots level, I guess, as well, improve engagement with those communities, then I'm really all ears, because it's really important. It's one thing to know that those health inequalities exist, but it's another thing entirely to actually try and put your money where your mouth is and actually do something about it. But that's where we've tried to make an impact so far. But yeah, it's not easy, and we have to change some of our outlook as well, and how our tone of voice and branding and everything is. We're very kind of out there, and we use the sort of colloquial word boobs because it puts people at ease, but we have to also be aware of the fact that it's not always going to be right, and it's not always going to be for the right audiences, and we have to sort of adapt really, adapt with language, and try and adapt in a way that's inclusive as well as accessible. So yeah, we have our work cut out.
No, but it sounds like it's on the right track. I think terminology is something we've come across all the time, haven't we, Joe, in podcasts, that actually it's something that we all need to sort of work on, but it's all about educating and moving forward. And I know you touched on the kind of the inclusivity part. I did read on your website This is something I don't really know enough about, to be honest, but that CoppaFeel is a bloody good employer that I read. So to do with the period poverty charity, I just thought it'd be quite nice. I know we've discussed doing a menopause
Bloody Good
kind
Period
of series in the future.
Charity.
Obviously,
they have a scheme,
this is for me that I need to learn about.
Bloody Good Employers, and CoppaFeel is a bloody good employer, and we are going through that process now. So we've been having sort of webinars and workshops about how we can be a better employer when it comes to periods and our understanding of periods and how we manage it. So we're going through that process at the moment. Absolutely get in touch with Bloody Good Period. Big shout out to them as well. They're a great charity and they're doing great work. So yeah, we're very proud to be a bloody good employer.
Going to be sitting there knowing everything about my menstrual cycle because I'm pretty open about everything. So yeah, he's probably already cringing inside, going, "No, there's only so much I can know about
Jo." I mean. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's for everyone. I mean, again,
it's an important topic area. I might have a daughter one day. I need to learn all these
group
things.
At CoppaFeel. We don't currently have a man working with us, but we did. We don't anymore. But when we did the workshop with Bloody Good Period, they were saying, it's just we don't do a thing anymore where we separate out. I think I read something the other day where they were saying, when you were at school, when I was at school anyway, a million years ago, and they'd have the period conversation, all the boys would go out the room, and now they're like, we don't do that anymore. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible, because honestly, it's shocking. Sometimes I think men of my age and older,
I was going to say, yeah,
their
exactly.
understanding is, and and the other way around as well. It's important for us to all know what's going on, with each other, because we interact with each other. So
Claire,
but yeah,
getting towards the end of
fantastic.
the podcast,
so definitely
do you
recommend
have any hints or
approaching
tips
them.
for anyone listening, whether that be patients, healthcare professionals, students?
Yeah, I mean, I've been banging on about this anyway, but really, it's just get to know your body. Don't be scared. I volunteered as a boobette as well, who are volunteers that we have at CoppaFeel who have had experiences with breast cancer themselves, and they go into schools and colleges and workplaces and talk about their experience of breast cancer. And I always used to say the same thing to them, which is, don't, get to know your body. Don't be scared of it. Don't be embarrassed of it, because you only get one. So you might as well look after it and be proud of it. And I think, sometimes I love the NHS. I love healthcare professionals. I think that they're all fantastic and big pat on the back. But, sometimes that we can over clinicalize, if that's a word, things. And it's scary for the public. And I think the message that I want to get out is, your body. If you're scared or concerned or worried, trust your gut, I would say, is a really big one. And that's a big one that we always say at CoppaFeel as well. Get to know your body is kind of a universal message for everyone, really. So that would be my advice.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm hoping whoever's listening has so much vital information we've discussed. And I think hearing patient voice, as you said, about empowering people, it's really, really nice to hear. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us for everything, really. But yeah, thank you to everyone for listening to Rad Chat. So your hosts today have been Naaman Joel Anderson and Joe McNamara. So yeah, huge thank you to Clare O'Neill. Head over to our YouTube page to see a live recording of this podcast. If you're utilising this podcast for CPD purposes, consider the reflective questions posted, along with any links to resources and literature we've discussed. To receive your accredited CPD certificate, please complete the Google form linked with the podcast. Our next guest to feature will be Julia McCrossan, who will be discussing her experience of having cancer and the amazing work she does to promote health and support for cancer patients. Thank you for listening and take care.